Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. So today we're back with episode number 3. If you could only buy one, we're pitting the Knob Creek 9-year up against the Knob Creek 12-year. We're going to talk about nosing, tasting, flavor profiles, value, all of those good things that are going to involve your participation in this and your ultimate decision of if you can only buy one, what will that be and why? We're going to talk about that today on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. All right, so let's have a little bit of fun today. So again, as I mentioned, we are talking Knob Creek 9-year versus the Knob Creek 12-year. So we'll give you a few of the specs. And again, this is going to involve your participation throughout. So make sure you're leaving a comment below as to if you could only buy one, what is that going to be? And more importantly, why? So let's first start with, on your left, the Knob Creek 9-year. This comes in at 100 proof mash bill. Now, this is a little bit of a speculation on my part. It's thought to be 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley. It is age stated as 9 years old, so we know that the minimum age of the bourbons within this blend are going to be 9 years old. Price point on this is going to be anywhere from about that $35 to $45 price point. So let's first start with this, which is going to be the lesser expensive of the two. And we'll give you a little idea of both what the nose has to offer as well as the palate. So first, as you can see, color, beautiful kind of like medium type of copper. Moving the whiskey around in the glass a little bit, pretty decent oils on that so far. But let's go ahead and get into the nose on this. So immediately for me on this, you get a very kind of tried and true feel. A lot of those kind of vanillas, caramels, a little bit more of that kind of peanut or peanut shell, oftentimes that Jim Beam is kind of known for. Beautiful baking spices, nice oak presence that's there. There is nothing off-putting about this nose at all. And in my experience with the Knob Creek 9 is, as this bottle kind of works down, it tends to get a little bit sweeter, a little bit richer, maybe more complex. So again, at that $35 to $45 price point, I think already is kind of a great value. Yeah, as I mentioned, beautiful baking spices. Hints of kind of like that baker's chocolate. This is a little bit more, I'll say, oak forward for me as far as a bourbon goes. It does give you a little bit more of those kind of richer, deeper, darker kind of characteristics. But let's go ahead and kind of dive into the palate and see what that's going to give us. Cheers. So immediately what comes to mind is tried and true. This has that quintessential bourbon profile. It has a lot of those vanillas, caramels, nice amount of oak. The one difference that maybe makes us a little bit different than a lot of others is there is a little bit of a heavier kind of peanut or peanut shell type of note that it has to it. For some people, that's something they enjoy. For some others, it's something that they can't get past. So I will say the one kind of note that stands out the most is a little bit of that kind of peanut or peanut shell kind of aspect. But outside of that, again, the vanillas, the caramels, that oak, little feel of maybe some butterscotch that's there, maybe some hints of like a dark fruit, maybe more of a baker's chocolate. So this does have a lot of those rich characteristics. But again, you're talking about also in terms of value, a bourbon that is within this blend a minimum of 9 years old. At 100 proof, price point, again, anywhere from about that $35 to $45 price point. In my opinion, it becomes an extremely, extremely heavy valued bourbon. Its availability is everywhere. It's just about anywhere you're going to go. So you should always be able to gravitate towards this if you're looking for just that overall general profile at 100 proof. Not only is it a great, in my opinion, great sipping bourbon, but also does extremely well in cocktails. So there you have a little idea of what it is that the Knob Creek 9-year has to offer. Again, availability fantastic, price point $35 to $45, and coming in at that 100 proof point, which again is a proof point that really hits or fits a lot of people's profile. So let's go ahead and move on to the Big Brother or the Knob Creek 12-year and give you some specs on that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Big Brother or the Knob Creek 12-year. It also comes in at 100 proof, same mash bill, which is the 7513-12. Price on this is where this is going to be a huge factor in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts here. This is where this becomes a significant jump in price. This anywhere from about $65, maybe upwards of $75 to $80, depending on where it is that you're buying it. Again, I mentioned 100 proof. Availability on this, I will say, is limited. It is somewhat available, and you do find these at times, but it is not nearly as available as the Knob Creek 9-year. And again, we're talking about a jump of about $30 or so. So this again is, in my opinion, of if you can only buy one, what is it going to be and why? So this is why I wanted to kind of pit these two together to get your feedback. Is the $35 or $40 bourbon going to be something you gravitate towards, or is the more expensive, less available Knob Creek 12-year worth that extra $30 price point? So let's go ahead and dive into that a little bit, and we'll kind of give you some of the nosing and tasting notes on this one to see, again, whether or not this is something that, in my opinion, feels like it is another $30 or almost double the price of the Knob Creek 9. So what I will say immediately is it's a much richer nose. So I think again, there's a difference of 3 years in terms of the age statement, but again, there could be older bourbons, again, within this blend, as well as the 9-year. This feels like on the nose so far a little bit richer, deeper, kind of darker on the nose. Definitely more oak, but has a similar profile with a little bit of that kind of nuttiness that the Knob Creek 9 had. More fruit, it feels like, on the nose here. Again, beautiful baking spices, nice kind of baker's chocolate note. Again, nice, beautiful oak that's there. Nice spice. I mean, it's very inviting. It feels like a bourbon that on the nose has a little bit of age to it. There is that depth and kind of richness that it has. But more importantly, let's see what the profile on this is going to be. And again, if it's going to be worth that extra $30 or $35 price point, depending on where you can get it. Cheers. So what I'll say right away is this does have a better mouthfeel. Definitely richer, creamier. There is more oak presence on this one. It feels a little richer, more balanced, a little bit more kind of complex, more fruit, definitely more baking spice on this one. But the overall balance and richness of this does feel somewhat significant over the Knob Creek 9-year. Still a lot of those vanillas, caramels. Again, there is much more of a richer, older feeling oak presence in this. What I will say about this is there is a little hint or extra dryness that comes with the Knob Creek 12 versus what I got with the Knob Creek 9. This feels a little bit maybe more on that sweeter side of things, where this is getting into what I'll say a little bit more of the richer dominant notes. And that will be, again, a little bit more oak, more fruit, definitely more kind of spice. Again, that oak driven type of profile that's there, more kind of baker's chocolate, leathers, tobaccos. So at the end of the day, this does feel like a much richer, well put together type of bourbon versus the Knob Creek 9. And I think where all of that is kind of showing up is in the ages. I think the ages of these bourbons are what is allowing this to kind of stand out a little bit more than the Knob Creek 9. So you are getting, again, heavier, richer, darker, deeper, richer type of notes, probably a little bit more well-balanced, definitely creamier, a little more viscous on the palate versus this. Again, this has a lot of the same attributes as this. I'm gonna say little or far less peanut shell notes here. That was a little bit more predominant on the 9. But overall, I think the biggest factor here is gonna come down to a couple things. The overall availability and its overall price. At around, let's just say $35 here, and let's just say $75 here, you know, that's a big difference. You're almost doubling up in price. So one of the questions would be, would you almost want 2 of the Knob Creek 9 years versus 1 of the Knob Creek 12 years? Again, you're getting slightly different profiles, but again, there's that price offset. So depending on what it is you're looking for, again, I can't wait to hear your thoughts and feedback in the description below as to if you can only buy one, which one is that gonna be and why? And I think, again, for not only me, but anybody coming back to watch the video and take a look at the notes below, that can play a huge part or a huge factor in what other people do. So that's one of the reasons for doing these videos, is exactly that, is to try to do a comparison of both availability, price, things along those lines that, again, make you think, and again, apply, if you can only buy one, what is that gonna be? So that is the question of the day, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts overall. Let's break this down into a couple of categories. With the Knob Creek 9, I think overall this provides an extremely fantastic value at $35 or $40, whatever that may be. So it's hard to get off of that in terms of what this has to offer. Now, this feels like, for me, probably one of those bourbons that if you just want a nice, tried and true go-to bourbons, this is going to do that for you every single day. This also, at that price point, allows for maybe some cocktail usage without feeling like you're breaking the bank or the cocktail is becoming too expensive based on the cost of the bottle. Now, if we go over to the Knob Creek 12 year, this again for me is probably where I'd be if I was just looking at this from a simple sipping standpoint. This is the profile that would probably work more for me just on a daily basis. From the overall richness, balance, kind of complexity, I think you're getting much more of that here than you are the 9 year. So for me, if I can only buy one, I'm probably gonna go with the Knob Creek 12 year because of its overall richness, balance, and complexity. And at this stage in my life, that's more of what I'm looking for. But if you're leaning a little bit more towards the value and availability of the Knob Creek 9 year and what its kind of versatility is, I have no problems with that at all. If I'm looking at this from just a pure sipping standpoint, I'd probably want to gravitate towards the 12 year versus the 9 year just because of what it has to offer. But at the end of the day, if I can only buy one, it's going to be the Knob Creek 12 year, even at that extra $30 price point. So with that being said, and the question of the day is, if you can only buy one for you, what's that going to be and why? Remember, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers.